Boston's biggest problem this summer isn't talent, it's the bill. The Celtics are one of the most expensive rosters in the league, and they're walking into free agency with almost no room to add. So how did a 60-win caliber team end up handcuffed, and what can they actually do about it? Let me break down the cap. Here's the plan. First, where this roster actually stands, because the record and the injuries tell two different stories. Then the cap reality, why their books are so tight. Then the tiny set of tools they actually have, and the one decision that defines their whole summer. The roster numbers are verified, the exact dollars are projections. Let's start with the team. This is Game is Culture. Quick thing before we dig in, if you like cap breakdowns that show the real math instead of guessing, subscribe. It's free and it helps a ton. Now where Boston stands. Where they stand. On paper, Boston is a juggernaut. 56 wins, the second best offense in the league, the fourth best defense, and the fourth best net rating overall. That is a championship caliber profile. Teams with those numbers usually cut down nets, but the Celtics didn't, and the reason why is the most important fact of their entire offseason. Jason Tatum played just 16 games. An injury wiped out almost his entire season, so this elite record was built mostly without him, carried by Jaylen Brown, who put up a monster 28, 7, and 5 as the lone star. Think about that. Boston was a top 4 team in the league with its best player on the shelf. That's the depth talking. It's also the bill. And then the playoffs happened. A shorthanded Boston ran into the 76ers and lost a 7-game war 4-3. So the takeaway is brutal but simple. This is a title team when healthy that got bounced because it wasn't. Which means the front office's instinct is to keep this group together, and keeping this group is exactly what costs so much. The cap reality. Here's why the books are stuck. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are both on maximum salaries, together north of $80 million a year. Add Derek White's extension and Peyton Pritchard's raise after a huge season, and Boston is paying its top 4 players premium money. That's how you build a 60-win core. It's also how you end up deep in the luxury tax, brushing the second apron. Put it on a bar. The luxury tax line sits around $188 million, and the dreaded second apron around $222 million. Boston's projected payroll is up near that second apron, my estimate well over $200 million. They aren't a little over the line. They're in the deepest, most penalized territory the new rules created. And the second apron isn't just a big tax bill, it's a cage. Over that line, you cannot combine contracts in a trade. You lose access to the full mid-level exception, and your future draft picks can get frozen. The league built these rules specifically to stop teams from stacking expensive stars forever. Boston is exactly the team they were designed to squeeze. And to make the cage concrete, look at what it actually forbids. Boston can't take 2 of its mid-sized salaries and combine them in a trade to move up for a better player. Aggregating money is banned over the apron. They can't offer the full mid-level exception to a free agent, only the smaller taxpayer version. They can't take back more salary than they send out in a deal, and if they camp up there for years, a future first-round pick gets frozen and shoved to the back of the draft. Nearly every normal team building tool is simply switched off. But before Boston fans panic about the bill, remember the history. This is the most decorated franchise in league history, and it got there by being willing to pay when a title was in reach. Ownership has lived in the luxury tax before and walked away with banners, so the eye-watering penalty isn't a reason to retreat. It's the cost of admission for a real contender. The cheap version of this roster doesn't hang banner number 19. The expensive one might, and that's the entire point of spending it. The tools they have left. So what can they actually use? Almost nothing. By design. A taxpayer mid-level exception worth only about $5.5 million. Minimum contracts. And their own bird rights to re-sign their own free agents. That's the whole toolkit. Boston cannot go shopping in free agency. They can only fill the edges with veterans willing to chase a ring for cheap. The Pat Riley special, except in green. Quick halftime note. If you want every team's cap broken down like this all summer, subscribe. It's free and it helps. Now, the one decision that defines their offseason. Boston's whole summer comes down to one fork. Pay the bill and run it back. Betting a healthy Tatum plus Brown is a champion, and eating a historic tax penalty to do it. Or blink, shed a real salary to duck under the apron, get your tools back, and accept a slightly lower ceiling for flexibility and sanity. Almost everything else is noise around that single call. Now, the good news for Boston fans. Ownership has shown it will pay. This franchise has lived in the tax to chase banners before, and a healthy version of this team is a legitimate favorite. So the most likely answer is they grit their teeth, pay the penalty, and run it back. Because letting a contender walk over money is how you waste a championship window. The verdict. So grade Boston's flexibility honestly, and it's low, near the bottom of the league. They have a mini exception, minimums, and almost nothing else. But here's the twist. Flexibility and contention aren't the same thing. Boston doesn't need flexibility, they need health. Their roster is already a contender. The cap sheet just means they have to win with who they have, not who they can add. And that reframes everything. For most teams, free agency is about adding talent. For Boston, it's about subtraction math and health insurance. Keeping the core whole, finding one or two cheap, useful bodies, and praying Tatum comes back at full strength. Their biggest move this summer might be one they can't make on a spreadsheet at all. It's whether their best player heals. And don't miss the hidden silver lining of a lost season. With Tatum out, Boston's young players and bench logged real high-pressure minutes carrying a winning team. That's experience most contenders never give their reserves because their stars play everything. So the cap sheet is ugly, but the supporting cast came out of this year more battle-tested, not less. A season derailed by injury quietly forged the depth that wins the next one. And that hard-earned experience didn't cost a dime against the cap. Where could I be wrong? If the tax bill genuinely scares ownership, a salary dump becomes real, and the whole calculus shifts toward flexibility over ceiling. And the exact apron math depends on a couple of decisions that aren't final, so treat the dollars as estimates. But the shape is clear. Boston is rich in talent and poor in options. So that's Boston's cap reality. A locked-in contender with no room and a giant bill. Do they pay it and run it back, or duck the apron and get flexible? And next video, the realistic free agents they can actually sign. Tell me what you do below. And we are so close to 1,000 subs, so subscribe to stay up to date.